Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to what is actually the very first episode of Aurora's new series, Connected. This series will be focusing on key partners, that we are working with within the ecosystem, finding out a bit more about them, and diving a bit more deeply into the products and partnerships that we have with them. Now, if you tune in weekly for Alpha Leaks, then you will already be aware of the format. Now, I'm very pleased today to say that we don't just have one guest speaker, but we actually have two. So welcoming to the stage, I'll be bringing Vidor, who is co-founder and co-CEO of Solflare. Vidor, welcome. And also Alex Shevchenko, who is the ex-CEO of Aurora and now the GM for NEAR Intents. So Alex and Vidor, hi, and welcome. Great to have you both here today.
Hello, everybody.
Great. Well, look, why are we doing this, I guess, is the first key question. So, of course, Solflare and Aurora, alongside NEAR Intents, announced a partnership very recently in relation to Aurora Intents, powered by NEAR Intents. And today's episode is going to be focused very much around why this kind of partnership has come about, what your insights are into kind of the user experience on Solana, on Solflare, and we'll also be finding out a bit more from Alex around kind of the wider implications that personal deposit addresses and NEAR Intents is having across the industry as a whole. But I guess, look, Vidor, as the guest speaker and as our partner, I'd love to start with you, right? The partnership only went live very recently. We're already seeing some great feedback as a result of that partnership. But one of the questions that I've seen coming up on some of my tweets, is that everybody's kind of assuming that self-custody and onboarding are big blockers, right, in terms of UX on Solana. Is that the case? Where does the funnel actually break today?
Yeah, that's a great question. And the answer is very counterintuitive. Everyone has a lot of negative things to say about, the TAM for writing down 12 words is 40,000 users or something like that, which is very not true. We see an above 80% conversion on that step. So people actually do sort of dabble, figure out what self-custody is, and back up their recovery phrase with a very high with a very high conversion rate. Where the funnel breaks is actually getting money into your wallet and then sort of doing the first transaction from there and sort of getting to the first piece of value. In terms of on-ramping, there's like few different types of users. The ones that never had held or seen cryptocurrency before, unfortunately, need to mostly on-ramp with sort of their credit card, which is a whole different problem. But there's a very wide universe of people who already hold some Bitcoin, Ethereum, some centralized exchanges, and bringing those funds into Solflare and Solana proved to be more challenging than what it looks like. From a centralized exchange, you just click withdraw. But if you have funds on another blockchain, another self-custodial wallet, that's hard. And historically, it's been a source of like a lot of frustration, like very long transfer times, very fragile bridges, very fragile user experiences where you need to like connect two wallets to two different dApps. And then also like another array of issues related to like liquidity, locking, whatever. So our integration was sort of a synthesis of all of that user feedback and what we've noticed in the market where the biggest friction point is, and optimizing for reducing the time to the first deposit for the users that have funds on another blockchain.
Okay, amazing. And obviously, Alex, NEAR Intents has been working with multiple networks across, different ecosystems, projects big and small. Have they reported kind of similar experiences, to what Vidor was describing with Solflare and Solana?
In general, yes. Many wallet solutions, they are saying that it is very inconvenient for users to navigate to dApps outside of the front end, and then these wallets are actually willing to have more and more of the user screen time, and they're also able to monetize it. So these two things are just coming together, making it simpler to the users because they have already chosen this particular wallet as their self-custody solution. They already trust in the tech. And giving them more functionality and absorbing more and more of the use cases really simplifies the user experience in general of users working with crypto, and in particular with this wallet. So it totally makes sense for this side where the wallets are starting to absorb more and more of the use cases directly into their front ends.
No, agreed. And obviously, you know, we're seeing this kind of absorption taking place, right? And we're seeing certain projects are absolutely quickly coming to the forefront. You know, Vidor, you talked about kind of this user journey and some of the misconceptions, but obviously user behavior evolves over a period of time, right? It's not generally a sudden shift unless there is some like cataclysmic introduction to the market. For Solflare, what has been that change in user behavior that you've kind of seen over the past 12 months? You know, where's that demand actually been moving to on your side?
So I think this can be broken down into two parts. One is what's happening within Solana, and the other is what's happening outside of Solana. Because the need for bridging when the majority of on-chain activity happens on Solana is not that big, right? And I would say Bitcoin and Ethereum and other blockchain networks had sort of a head start on sort of acquiring users and sort of holding. And essentially, what's changed is on Solana is where people don't just like hold one asset and then sort of wait for it to go up or down, but there's been an increasing interest in sort of the long tail assets. And those are not necessarily just meme coins. Those are mostly also like stable coins, a lot of RWAs, tokenized stocks, and essentially even like collectibles such as Pokemon cards. We've seen a massive increase in people sort of buying and trading those on chain, which we have not seen maybe like a year or two ago, where I would say the spotlight has been taken by meme coins.
No, that makes sense. I mean, I'm also, as Alex will attest to, a collector of quite a few different things, although I must admit I've not done any on-chain Pokemon trades yet. That might be next up on my list to look at. So look, I mean, as you're seeing this kind of user behavior change, you know, you obviously have to reflect that, you know, within your wallet. What has been kind of some of the challenges, or perhaps the, you know, the biggest trade-offs that you've had to think about? You know, I don't know, you've got security, you've got convenience, you know, or actually is it something completely different?
Yeah, but maybe similarly to what Alex mentioned, one of the big insights that we've also gotten is a vast majority of funded users never connect to external dApps. And external dApps were a big source of sort of security issues, because we needed to build all this tech where you like connect to this dApp, and then this like third-party developer does like a malicious transaction, and we need to make sure that our user won't get rugged or whatever. So we built a lot of tech related to like simulations, assertions, so that like essentially basically creating like a whole sandbox environment for that. But as trends were changing, a lot of people just stay in the wallet. And before, we needed to sort of make that dApp connection flow very rigorous and very rigid, so that people don't do that as easily as now. But now, seeing that people stay more in the wallet, we can do features of more convenience and sort of a bigger product offering than before. We sort of a relaxed set of security standards of stuff that gets consumed within the wallet, because we can implement all of that sort of security checks on our side. And we don't need to do it in a sort of generic manner where we need to protect you from everything. But when we do specific integrations, like our integration with Bridge, we can sort of say, okay, we trust this, we've implemented security mechanisms and observability mechanisms to sort of figure out that everything is going as planned. And I would say that's essentially the trade-off. You get better user experience with sort of siloed security, instead of getting worse user experience with security that's like a security surface that's so broad that it's hard to cover.
No, that makes sense. And obviously, I saw Alex nodding there. Me and him have had this discussion more than once. Alex, is there anything you want to add to that?
Yeah. From my point of view, In general, to add, yeah, super aligned with what Vidor you have been saying here. What I would like to add here is that it feels to me that crypto is going through this, like cycle of the maturity of the technology, and we have been very immature. Or we're just everybody's early in crypto, and because of these, all of the guts of the technology, these low-level things have been always displayed and were sticking out. And this reminds me like the early stages of the 3D printing community, or the early stages of the general purpose computing on GPU. So these are communities that I have been exposed to. But nowadays, you take this thing from this company, you plug it in, and then your kid is able to use and 3D print things on it. Or you are taking a graphics card, and even if you're programming it, it is extremely easy. You're not thinking about transferring data from your RAM to your device memory, and stuff like that. Like it's all automated. So from my point of view, crypto has been and is still very early, and is in the process of building the proper high-level abstractions for the users, so it is much more convenient to use. And this migration of users stopping using the apps and instead focusing more on their experience inside of the wallets is exactly the supportive point for kind of get into this better version of the crypto than we have right now. It is extremely clunky, like all of the wallet connect style solutions, all of the standards around connecting the wallets this is very hard to do. Obviously, we all value here the self-custodiality and ability to recover from the disasters of the particular wallet. And for these low-level primitives should support this. You should have digital inheritance. You should have an ability to manage the seed phrase, and somehow later on, if the wallet dies, to recover your funds and stuff like that. So we need to do this, and we also need to teach people how to use this thing properly, hopefully without major disasters that we have seen just recently with projects like Coldcard. But if these things are fixed, and they are solved, then the whole responsibility for the good user experience should be lying in one hands and in the hands of the wallets, so that they are able to provide great user experience. And so people are using crypto rails at least at the same level or the same volume that people are using more TradFi solutions and neobanks. Because if this is not happening, then crypto will still continue to be very niche and to extremely small subset of humans, which would be the version of the world that I don't want to work in. So that's why we are building the infrastructure that powers great user experiences for everybody in crypto.
No, thank you, Alex. I mean, it's quite interesting, really, listening to both of you. It's not actually that different or distinct from what we saw when the incumbent banks started to be replaced, right? They were very painful processes. You'd have to go into a branch or use telephone banking and have some little keypad that would only stay bright for 10 seconds. Whereas now, obviously, you've just got Face ID and everything else. And I think that's almost an inevitable evolution, right? When a space becomes big enough to matter to enough people, the question becomes less about reaching everything and more about being able to move seamlessly. Vidor, obviously, you guys have, of course, just changed how your users are funding their wallets, with the partnership with Aurora Intents. What's pushed that? Why now? Has it been kind of seen positively by the users so far?
So it was one of those things that we knew for a long time that needed to happen, but the way that we, in a very opinionated way, wanted to have it was not technically possible, or the infrastructure didn't exist. If you have a multi-chain wallet, it's easy. You can sort of plug in all of the APIs and everything within the few networks in one single wallet and then sort of shuffle everything in the background. But Solflare is a single chain wallet. We only support Solana, and we wanted to allow deposits to Solana from any other blockchain. And we didn't want to make any technical assumptions around where these funds are coming from, but we wanted to start with sort of a common understanding. Okay, the place where you send crypto from should have a send feature, and I think this was the sort of the lowest level assumption that we could make. And thanks to NEAR Intents and the cool tech that Aurora Labs provided with sort of the persistent addresses, we were able to create what we consider the sort of the ultimate end state of bridges, where you don't have sweaty palms anymore of is the bridge going to complete, but just like put your mind in a state where you can just like click the send button and you know it's going to work, and then it's going to arrive a few seconds later on your Solflare wallet. So that's essentially what we believed, that this is the ultimate state of bridging tech, and we wanted to sort of have it this way, and we were just waiting for it to be possible.
No, amazing. And obviously, look, Aurora's spent quite a bit of time, building these products out, but it wouldn't, of course, be possible, without the underlying technology provided by Alex and his team at NEAR Intents. I guess it's probably a great entry point, Alex, to dive a little bit more into the infrastructure, that both Solflare and, of course, Aurora Labs are using on a daily basis, right? So we're now obviously offering, persistent deposit addresses. What's your view here, right? Well, what does this unlock outside of the use case that we're seeing today? What does tomorrow's use case look like with this kind of functionality?
So the way how I'm thinking about the persistent addresses is that this resembles like your bank accounts. So when you're spending money or sending it to a friend, or your friend is sharing with you this your details, then you're able to send money to this person. And I think this is a step towards lots of use cases that are operating with these kind of like addresses. Any type of payment solutions, any type of solutions where you're trying to request money, and you like funding requests and stuff, invoices. All of these things are gonna able to be working with that stuff, provided the fact that NEAR Intents protocol is now supporting confidential custody of money. So people who are using NEAR Intents are able to hold their assets from all of the supported chains in the confidential mode. This also means that these use cases are becoming even more tenable, because you cannot implement your payroll if it is fully executed on public blockchain, because now all of your team and all of the teammates are going to see who is get paid what. You cannot run a successful large-scale business on a public blockchain with a completely open public payments, just because all of your competitors are going to know what you charge. This is a bad idea business-wise. So from that standpoint, combining this confidentiality together with the easy infrastructure to remove the boundaries in between the chains, I think that this is something that can empower quite a lot of different use cases, and eager to see the world in several months from now, and more people are going to discover that now this is possible, and will simplify the user experience for their users and their clients too, and deliver a better version of this. And persistent deposit addresses, independently of how techy and low level this thing sounds, actually is an important step forward towards these better experiences.
It's really interesting because, I guess throughout the last few questions, we've obviously been talking about users, as in us as people. I guess what's most interesting, what you just said there, Alex, is, the evolution is actually kind of expanding the next layer above, right, to the businesses. We're talking about payroll, we're talking about international settlement, which of course, is how the whole neobank boom started, right? Traveler cards for users, so they weren't having to, remortgage their house to use an ATM. in Europe or something like that. And now what we're seeing, of course, is full-fledged, international banking as well. So it'd be interesting to see actually if we start to see a shift between not only user adoption but actually business adoption. When we start seeing kind of these UX barriers removed, for companies as well as users. And Vida, I guess that's probably a good entry point, right? To come back to you. We've talked quite a bit about UX being a barrier, right? Especially when it comes to cross-chain deposits. You said yourself the infrastructure didn't exist. Would you say it is just an infrastructure problem, or would you say actually there's been a wider UX problem for users in general, not just with Solflare, but across the board, within our space?
Well, speaking specifically related to cross-chain deposits.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think there's been either A, lack of research, or B, a massive misunderstanding between the companies who were building bridges all of these years on Solana in terms of what is cool technology and what do consumers actually have. And I've been bugging some of these for years that this is something that we sort of actually need. But I feel like priorities were elsewhere, and then sort of you guys came around and we were able to build this. So I think it was sort of like a prioritization / misunderstanding of how important is it to reduce the bridging flow to a send flow. I think it's as simple as that.
No, makes total sense. And I guess obviously it's probably a good entry point to come back to you, Alex, actually. We've talked about what PDA could potentially unlock, but you also talked about this concept, right, of just being able to send to a username or an address. If that becomes the default, right, for cross-chain funding, what does the rest of the industry have to do? What does the rest of the infrastructure need to do to actually catch up, with this kind of simplicity and functionality?
Yeah, I think it's very easy. Just forget about blind signing of unknown smart contract calls. Forget about thinking about gas commissions, synchronizing the different networks. Forget about all of these things that we invented. Let's put these things into the bin. These are not relevant for 95 or 99% of people who are using crypto. These are low-level primitives that needs to be abstracted away. And I would recommend all of the user-facing products. Just go and take a look at the Web2 analogs that are showing great user experience. Web2 mastered user experience much better than Crypto Bros. And we need to be humble. We need to go and learn and do our homework from that. And you just use this as inspiration. You take the technologies that are already developed and reuse them, to deliver better user experiences. And then everybody are going to win, or like all of the crypto bros are going to win. Because if Solflare gets additional users, it means that these users are bringing direct revenue to Solflare. It also means that these users are using Aurora's and NEAR infrastructure, and then everybody are getting their piece of the pie here. And then we all can grow just because of the matter that the economy, the blockchain economy is growing. And that's a very natural and a good network effect that is going to be propagated across all of the different applications and all of the different providers out there.
But obviously, I mean, you said it in jest, right? They can just throw their product in the bin, right, and start again. But actually, there's quite a lot of companies, right, within our space whose entire focus and entire niche has been solving, one small piece of, the bridging problem or the cross-chain problem or the wallet problem. Do you not think that with the advent of NEAR Intents, with what we're seeing from the Solflare team, actually a lot of these projects are just going to die, right? And is that a bad thing for crypto? Does it, unblock the developers to work for other projects that are filling that space? What do you think? And that's an open question to either of you, by the way.
Yeah, well, I think like for any type of a company, especially in the earlier stage, in the startup mode or scale-up mode, it is extremely important to keep adapting to the realities of the market. And we've seen many companies that are closing because of the market conditions. which I disagree with. They're closing not because of the market conditions. Everybody knew that the market at some point in time will be hard. They're closing because CEO was not adapting, was not making proper decision, was not functioning. And that's the, but independently of that, you need to be agile. You need to adjust. This is extremely important for smaller companies. So hopefully many people will be able to adjust. The others are going to die, and that's the nature. That's the nature of doing business. This is the core of the market economy, kind of. So it is going to happen. There will be more people out there seeking for jobs, and that's okay. And then at some point, so like the people with money and companies with money are gonna have a little bit stronger hand in the near term, but later on, everything will get funded again. Again, there will be a bullish cycle, and lots of money will be pouring in, so that then the talent is going to have stronger hand. That's just the nature of how things are working. So yeah, the only thing that I really like to happen is this move for us as builders of the vertical to make the technology more mature and more applicable to ordinary people. So that, as Leo Ton is saying, he was able to teach his grandma how to do the BTC staking on Binance. What I would wish we will get, what is the point that I would wish we as a vertical can get into, is that Leo Ton's grandma becomes an owner or like a user of a non-custodial wallet, and she would be able to use all of the DeFi primitives and all of the other use cases of crypto directly holding her assets in her hands. So,
Leoton, if your grandma's watching, Alex will personally give you a coaching session on how to offer a non-custodial wallet.
Maybe just to quickly add here, I think the first 15 years post Bitcoin's inception, everything in crypto was built in a very dogmatic way. We've been building crypto because crypto school and stuff was almost being built like a cult. You cannot have product analytics because privacy, you cannot have this, you cannot have that. And I think the past 2 or 3 years, all of the builders understood, okay, we need to continuously learn what the evolution of our users looks like and how our users behave to be able to do what Alex said, to adapt to the market, survive bear markets, build on trends that are actively sort of happening, and that's the way to sort of do product development. Something that's been a thing for like decades. I think the crypto industry has figured it out just in the past few years.
No, 100%. And I mean, look, I think, it's fair to say that your industry in particular, Vido, wallets has seen probably some more fierce competition and some, faster kind of adaptations than many other areas of the space, just because of the entry point for users, right? And as you've seen this kind of maturity take place over the last, 13 years in your case, what do you think it's going to look like for the next few years, right? What do wallets like Solflare need to become next? Do they stay as wallets? Do they evolve?
Yeah, so I think the most washed out answer to that question is that everyone's becoming a neobank. But people who hated banks and found savior in neobanks are not going to find savior in neobanks. So I foresee that there's going to be this like new vertical category of financial products that are going to be emerged from the whole sort of we just want to be a neobank, and it's going to be an intersection of something that is more driven by attention. We see a lot of sort of like community-based trading, a lot of community-based sort of both collectibles and assets that have more of sort of like an emotional tie to the newer generation who's attention-driven than like the S&P 500, which is sort of, I would say, argue boring for the new generation. So I think that's going to we're going to see a new product vertical in the next few years.
No, okay. Well, look, so I guess same question to you, Alex, right? So let's say 2 years down the line, a year down the line, Solflare is still a great partner for Aurora Intents and NEAR Intents. what will that NEAR Intents infrastructure look like? What do you think is going to be, sat on top, this time in 2028?
Our goal is to make sure that all of the use cases that are naturally which are naturally are interesting for the users, and they are wrapped up into the non-custodial setup of the NEAR Intents with an extremely smooth flow in between all of these use cases, and that we are able to supply these use cases towards the partners, and then the partners decide how to use them, how to mix these use cases, and how to create their own unique user experience for their users. So we are talking here about real world assets, and then for some of the partners, this would not be that relevant because you want to have more of the meme coins rather than the S&P 500s. But maybe for some other partners, this is important. So we would like to make sure that this is available. Then for the first type of people, then, perps, it's kind of more of a kind of gambling and meme coins. I've seen some thoughts that maybe meme coins are going to return back in some kind of other form on crypto Twitter. So let's see, maybe these type of new use cases are going to be there. Definitely the gambling direction towards the prediction markets. It feels to me that like the gambling side of human is somewhere encoded inside of the genome, and then like everybody are willing to do something of it. The only thing that I would like to say to everybody is that please make sure that every time when you gamble, you are not gambling with all of your money, but rather with something that you can afford to lose. Because again, some stats, for example, from Robinhood that I've seen, this is extremely, extremely worrisome when the vertical of the prediction market starts to be the main revenue driver for the application. It is from one side good for Robinhood, but then it is devastating for all of the users of Robinhood. And I'm, as you know, since I'm in crypto for more than 10 years, I'm more on the side of people. So yeah, anyway, our ambition and what we are trying to do is to make sure that the use cases, these financial or mainly financial use cases around crypto that are getting traction, that are making quite a lot of sense for everybody, these use cases are wrapped into a very usable and very simple infrastructure, so that others are able to build their solutions on top of it very easily, and they are able to deliver great user experience.
Amazing. Last bet I made was on England winning the World Cup, and well, we know how that ended up, didn't we? So still a sore topic even for me. Well, look, I think we're almost coming to a close, but I'd like to kind of get in a couple more questions for both of you. Obviously, Vidor, the whole kind of thing that brought us together today is the new partnership between Aurora Intents and Solflare. Have you seen any kind of early signals from users in terms of what they're using it for, or any trends that have been of particular interest for you guys?
We've seen bridges from Tron in significant volume. I think Tron is a network with a lot of stable coins, so people are moving their stable coins onto Solana, which is good. And I think we've also seen some Bitcoin signals, if I'm not mistaken, which is also interesting. I would have not expected people to sort of deposit Bitcoin and get stable coins or Solana on the other side. But hey, I think that's good. And those are some of the sort of like early data insights that we have.
No, amazing. I mean, look, obviously we're super excited to see what the next few months and weeks look like, in terms of our partnership with you guys. Is there anything you'd like to share with everyone listening now in terms of what's coming up next for Solflare? Any sneak peeks?
We're building a lot of things related to trading, related to spending, on-ramping, off-ramping, related to, a bunch of stuff, really. I don't want to spoil any surprises, so I'm going to leave it at that.
Fair enough. Well, look, Vidor, thank you very much for taking the time, to join us today and to share your insights on both Solflare, Solana, and of course, kind of the wider views on the crypto space as a whole. Final question to you, Alex. Obviously, you've already kind of made out where you think where the big bets of the industry are going to be. What's next for NEAR Intents? Anything exciting that you'd like to share ahead of any public release?
We're building the next level of the account infrastructure so that any wallet will be able to have cross-chain accounts with modular functions, including digital inheritance, including recovery methods, multiple factor authentication, and many limits on withdrawals and stuff like that. This is the core functionality that is required to build the neobanks or other more advanced UXs. This is happening as we speak. Extremely bullish on these things, and this is something that will come forward and will be available to everybody to use.
Amazing. Well, look, folks, you've kind of got some good insights there on both sides. Both Alex and Vidor, thank you very much for your time today. I believe we kind of covered off quite a few of the questions, as we were going along. But yeah, really appreciate the insights and look forward to seeing what's coming next from both. So have a great day. And for everyone listening, take care and goodbye.
Thanks, Declan. Thanks, everyone.